Morning guys, how you doing? It's the morning after the night before here in Milan. It's finally a couple of minutes of downtime for me. It's been a pretty crazy couple of days, non-stop work. I think I've had like maybe 5 hours sleep each night since we arrived, but it's all been good. Finished off with a positive result for Newcastle last night. As I said in my previous video, obviously the display wasn't great in terms of what Newcastle did with the ball, but a real togetherness and unity showed within the team. And I've just been on Sky Sports News reflecting that just now. We heard from Kieran Trippier, Dan Burn, Callum Wilson, and also Nick Pope, who was man of the match. So time finally for a coffee and to try and just reflect on the last few days before my flight back, which is later today in a few hours time from Milan back to Manchester, then up to Newcastle. What I wanted to do was just come on and just give a little update on the Newcastle fan who was attacked on Tuesday night on these streets here in Milan. Eddie McKay, 58, from the West End of Newcastle, who of course was over here on a visit with his son and his son's mate to enjoy last night's Champions League match and all the build-up surrounding it. But sadly that trip for him was cut short when he was attacked in a cowardly attack by some locals. I'm told they were wearing balaclavas. They chased after him, and then when Eddie fell on the street, he was kind of pinned down and stabbed in the back and the neck. And I think we've all seen the pictures circulating online. Horrible images of the injuries suffered by Eddie, 58 years old, a granddad. Horrible to see, and I think that was dominating a lot of supporters' thinking yesterday. Yes, they were having a good time, but I think also their thoughts were with him. Certainly supporters coming up and asking me how he was. Spoke to his daughter Rachel yesterday, and then I've spoken to her again this morning to get an update on Eddie, and the news is good, it's positive. He's on the mend. Luckily for Rachel, she managed to get a flight out here. She said there was a Ryanair flight from Newcastle. I didn't even know there were any flights from Newcastle, hence why I'm flying back to Manchester this afternoon, but there we go. She was lucky that the times fitted in well, and she flew out here yesterday afternoon, didn't even pack, jumped on a plane, went to the hospital where her dad was being treated. He was in a stable condition. He'd been patched up for those really nasty stab wounds, and she managed to get him discharged and then took him back to Newcastle last night. He arrived late into the northeast around about midnight last night, and then they took him into the RVI overnight, where he got checked over and his wounds were redressed, and they took good care of him back there, and they discharged him and sent him home. So I'm told as of this morning, what is it? It's 11:15 here in Milan, so 10:15, 9:45 back home in the UK. I'm told that he's in bed, he's sleeping, and he's trying to recover from a traumatic couple of days where he's not had much sleep over here. And I think at one point he probably feared for his life when he saw the stab wounds over his body. I think his son, who was with him, got a real fright as well, and although he wasn't injured, I think he's in a lot of shock after what he witnessed happening to his dad. No one wants to see that to anyone, but particularly like someone like your dad, who you're probably trying to look after on a trip like this. It must have been really difficult for him. But listen, the positive is they've got him back. I think he saw a bit of the game before he flew last night. The flight back was after the game, as I say, landed back about midnight into Newcastle, and he's back and he's on the mend. So it sounds as though he will make a full recovery. Rachel this morning said that it feels like a bad dream, that they're all still in shock, they can't believe it happened. She said she was fortunate with flights managing to get him back, but she just wanted to send a message and thank everyone for their well wishes and their support over the last couple of days, because I think the family have had a lot of nice messages, but I think for her, she's had no sleep for the last couple of days, worried about her dad getting out here and getting him back in the hospital and back in Newcastle overnight. So traumatic couple of days for them. In terms of reprisals or what happens from here, the family have been told that they'll hear from police here in Milan in the next couple of days but they're just giving Eddie and the family a couple of days to try and sort of recover and get back to normal life after what's going on. So yeah, listen, they've gotten back fairly quickly. I think when I saw the photographs and I first spoke to Rachel yesterday morning, I thought he'd probably be out here for a few days, but they've managed to get him back safely. I think the language barrier was a bit of an issue with the hospital here in Milan, so he'll be getting the best care back home, and it sounds as though everything is going to be okay, albeit that he's had a real fright, and his family have had a real fright. But I think it just shows that on these trips away, and the Newcastle fans are going to have to be aware of that moving forward. I think Paris can be quite a dangerous place, maybe not so much Dortmund, but you never know in these things. I've seen incidents like this in the past, and that could have easily have been a lot more serious. On Monday night, could have easily, and we could have been sitting here talking about something a lot more serious than it was. I'm saying serious, it was horrendous, and I can only imagine how it must have felt for the family. But in terms of getting him back home within the space of 24-48 hours has been a kind of good end result to what was a very scary situation. But I think the message is just there for the Newcastle fans moving forward for the rest of this trip. They've not been into Europe for a long time, and these things happen in these streets, sadly. Those that stabbed him, were told, stripped him of his Newcastle shirt and took it away and left him with the stab wounds in his back and his arms. So it would suggest that there's a football related element to that. Obviously that hasn't been confirmed. Police over here in Milan wouldn't confirm that, but looking forward to Paris and Dortmund, I think it's a case of kind of being as safe as you can, stay in big numbers, and maybe wearing football colours at certain times isn't the best idea, but obviously you want to support your team as much as you can. So listen, it's a warning for everyone. Sad story that at least it's got a happy end and that Eddie's back home. And as I say, Rachel just wanted to reach out and thank everyone and make everyone aware that he's fine, he's home, he's asleep, and he's on the mend. So yeah, that's a positive ending here. Good result for Newcastle last night on the pitch with that 0-0 draw, and then the news this morning that Eddie is back home in Newcastle, and looking ahead to the future after those really nasty injuries that he suffered on Monday night. But that's it for me here in Milan. Do subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more videos. Obviously we'll be following the club in Europe this season, trying to do more of these back home in the UK as well. It's finding the time to do them in amongst the TV stuff that's difficult. Been so manic these last couple of days with TV work and online work for Sky, and then obviously the attack that happened to Eddie kind of magnified things even more. So I'm trying to find time to do these, but the more subscribers I get and the more nice comments and people replies, it'll kind of push me to keep doing these. So do subscribe if you want to see more of this. Give us a comment, hit the like button, whatever you want to do, and or the dislike button, you might prefer to do that. But I'm reading all your comments, and it's nice to hear, especially for those fans who can't get away on the trips like this. So anyway, that's me from Milan, heading back to Manchester later, back up to Newcastle, and then back to the old day job back in the northeast. But thanks for watching these last couple of days, and I'll be back with another video towards the end of the week. Okay guys, over and out. Cheers.